Welcome to session 3 of our module, The Science of Happiness. We often wonder why some people remain cheerful despite hardship, while others feel unhappy even with comfort. This session focuses on the happiness set point and how external factors and intentional activity play roles in long term well being. For instance, you can win the lottery, and despite the short term elation you experience, you will eventually revert back to your set point. So, if your set point for happiness is low, the bright skies after a lottery win will turn back to dark clouds. Multiple studies have consistently proven this the case. Then, there's the other extreme. You can lose your ability to walk after a terrible car accident. This may plunge you into depression at first, but if your set point for happiness is high, then you'll eventually experience happiness again, even though you're wheelchair bound for life. Allow me to provide another example. In this country, we value education. Schools like Harvard and Stanford are the dream universities for young people across the nation. But if a student aspires to enroll in top schools, thinking I'll be so happy when I receive my I acceptance letter, any happiness will be short-lived. The set point for happiness is a psychological term that describes a general level of happiness. Each of us has a different set point. Some have a high set point, meaning we are the most happy. Some have a low set point, meaning we are the most unhappy, while others fall somewhere in between. Imagine a balance scale where one side represents weight gain and the other weight loss. The scale keeps adjusting itself to return to a central equilibrium. This symbolizes the body's tendency to maintain a stable weight. You could also depict a thermostat-like dial showing the body's internal regulation of metabolism and hunger. Our set point for happiness is based on our genetics and condition. While we may have emotional ups and downs throughout our lives, these are temporary. No matter what life throws at us, over time, our happiness bounces back to the same set point. Set point theory of happiness. Set point theory suggests individuals have a baseline level of happiness determined by genetics and personality traits such as optimism or neuroticism. Twin studies suggest that identical twins raised apart often show similar levels of happiness. Longitudinal studies says people often return to their baseline after marriage, job changes, or if often illness. Example, lottery winners experience a spike in happiness, but usually return to this baseline level within a year. While genetics contribute to 50%, we still have control over 40% of our happiness through our actions and mindset. External influences of happiness. Happiness rises with income to a certain threshold, beyond which the returns diminish. Let us take an example of a young professional earning $40,000 gets a promotion doubling their salary. They experience relief paying off debts, upgrading their lifestyle, but after reaching financial security, the additional money brings only marginal joy. Another example is in rural India, a modest farmer who sees his village thrive, better roads, schools, and healthcare feels greater joy than someone who is experiencing individual financial success. Health. Physical and mental health are deeply tied to well being, but resilience plays a crucial role. Let us take an example of Stephen Hawking. Despite his condition, found immense joy in theoretical physics and his contributions to science. His intellectual pursuits and social connections added meaning to his life beyond his physical condition. Japanese centenarians in Okinawa attribute their longevity to ikigai, a deep sense of purpose. Despite physical aging, their engagement in community, gardening, and storytelling fosters immense well-being. The third one we are going to discuss about is about relationships. Human connection is one of the strongest predictors of happiness. Close bonds with family, friends, and supportive partner enhance life satisfaction. Let's take two examples. A retired with modest savings but an active social life, attending gatherings, sharing stories, and engaging in community projects might feel greater contentment than a wealthy individual living in isolation. The second example is in Latin America, families living in multi generational households experience strong emotional support. Elderly members passed on wisdom, while young members feel connected to tradition, enhancing life satisfaction for all. The fourth one is work. Meaningful work enhances intrinsic motivation, making even modestly paid jobs fulfilling. Let's take an example of a teacher earning an average salary feels deep satisfaction mentoring students and seeing them succeed. Their emotional reward surpasses financial incentives. An African textile weaver, continuing their ancestors' traditional methods, finds deep satisfaction in preserving artistry, even if mass production could make more money. The fifth one is environment. A safe, green, and socially connected environment boosts well being. Let us take an example. Studies show that people living near parks or in walkable communities report greater happiness compared to those in crowded, polluted urban spaces. Natural surroundings foster relaxation and positive emotions. Nordic countries embrace hygiene, creating cozy, communal spaces indoors during long winters, fostering warmth and social connection, which boosts happiness despite harsh weather. As we have already discussed about set point theory, now we're going to discuss about Sonia Lyubomirsky's model or sustainable happiness model. Sonia Lyubomirsky's model breaks down happiness into three key components. The first one is genetic set point, which constitutes 50%. This refers to our biological predisposition for happiness. Research suggests that about half of our overall well-being is hardwired, meaning some people naturally experience life more positively, while others may have a lower baseline of happiness. Let us take an example of identical twins who are raised separately but still show similar happiness levels due to genetics despite different life experiences. Second one is life circumstances. External factors such as income, health, relationships, and environment have a surprisingly small long-term impact on happiness. Let us take an example. A person who wins a lottery brings temporary euphoria, but within months, happiness returns to baseline as the novelty wears off. The third one is intentional activity, which constitutes for 40%. The most malleable factor, happiness, can be effectively cultivated through behaviors, mindset, and habits. Engaging in gratitude, social connections, meaningful work, physical activity, and mindfulness significantly boosts well-being. Example, if a person practices gratitude journaling every day, brain rewires to notice positive aspects of life, which leads to sustained happiness over time. The intentional activities include practicing gratitude, cultivating optimism, savoring life's joys, committing to goals, practicing mindfulness, and performing acts of kindness. Example: a daily 10-minute meditation practice has been shown to increase well being significantly over time. As we already discussed about the set point theory and Sonia Lyubomirsky's model, now we shall be discussing about the dynamic equilibrium theory of happiness. The dynamic equilibrium theory, proposed by Hedy and Weary, suggests that while individuals have a stable baseline level of well-being, like in set point theory, their life events and daily experiences interact with personality traits to produce short changes in happiness. Over time, people tend to return to a psychological equilibrium, but this equilibrium point is dynamic, meaning it can shift gradually depending on life circumstances and internal dispositions. The key assumptions of dynamic equilibrium theory of happiness is each person has a characteristic level of happiness that is stable over time. The life events, be it positive or negative, cause temporary deviations from this baseline, and the personality traits like extraversion, neuroticism, and openness influence the speed and extent of return to equilibrium. The set point itself is not entirely fixed over time. Due to cumulative experiences or personal growth, it can be reset or recalibrated. What exactly this baseline or equilibrium level is? Think of it like a thermostat that regulates your psychological comfort zone. You may get temporarily heated by stressful situations or cooled by joyful events, but your mind eventually adjusts to bring you back to normal situation. Life events. Events like marriage, job loss, illness, promotion, or divorce can disrupt the equilibrium. Some events like chronic illness or long-term unemployment may permanently lower the equilibrium. Others, like positive goal achievement, therapy, or new social networks, may elevate the equilibrium. Personality traits. Certain traits, how you experience and respond to events also brings you back to the equilibrium level. Neuroticism amplifies negative experience and slows recovery. Extraversion enhances enjoyment of positive events and quickens return to baseline. These traits act as filters through which life events are interpreted, making the response more individualized. Adaptation and adjustment. Unlike hedonic adaptation, which suggests a rigid return to the baseline, DET or the dynamic equilibrium theory allows for change. With repeated or significant experiences, individuals may adapt in such a way that their average happiness levels shift. Now, let us understand and compare the two important psychological theories that explain how our happiness works over time: the set point theory and the dynamic equilibrium theory. We shall go row by row from this table to compare them. First one is stability. The set point theory says that our happiness level is very rigid, like a thermostat, which we have already discussed, that set a fixed temperature. Even if something really good or bad happens, we eventually return to this fixed set point. Whereas in dynamic equilibrium theory, on the other hand, suggests that happiness is more flexible. Our happiness baseline can shift gradually over time, depending on our experiences and personal growth. The second row, adaptation. In set point theory, adaptation is complete and unavoidable. No matter what happens, like winning the lottery, we get used to it and return to our old happiness level. But in dynamic equilibrium theory, adaptation is partial and modifiable. That means we do adapt, but not completely. Our long-term happiness can still change. The third row discusses about personality role. Set point theory doesn't focus much on personality. It assumes we all just bounce back to a baseline no matter who we are. Contrast, dynamic equilibrium theory says personality is central. Who we are, whether we are naturally optimistic or pessimistic, plays a big role in how we adjust and maintain happiness. The fourth row discusses about life events. According to set point theory, life events like marriage, job loss, or illness have only a temporary impact on happiness. You'll feel a change, but soon return to your default level. But in dynamic equilibrium theory, these events can have lasting impacts, especially if they are repeated or deeply meaningful. Let's take a classical example of set point theory, where lottery winners return to prior happiness levels. They're thrilled at first, but eventually go back to feeling how they did before. But with dynamic equilibrium theory, if someone has repeated success or goes through trauma, their happiness level can gradually shift up or down. So, in short, set point theory says happiness is like a rubber band. It snaps back to its original shape. But dynamic equilibrium theory says the rubber band can stretch or shrink over time based on your life, personality, and repeated experiences.